Today we'll start on a new series of videos I'm going to call Real Architecture with SketchUp. The concept here is following along on a small project in my office to basically rebuild an existing building or adaptive reuse. So this is the end result here. The idea of this concept is we're going to go through about 6 to 8 videos taking this from square one, which is we got some photographs of the existing building. We visited the site and took measurements and worked with the client to decide what was what. This in the upper left is, I'm referring to it as a mid-century pole barn because of the low roof pitches. They're actually not even the same pitch. I think one's at 312 and one's at 5.3 on 12. The concept here was the owner wanted to maintain the existing roof line because he has a bunch of lumber logs, as it were, that he's going to mill, or already has at the point of this video. He's going to mill into boards, 2x4s, 2x6s, 2x10s, etc., to construct the new building. The idea here is keep the roof, and there are poles, which you can just make out in this photograph. I'll zoom in a little. This, by the way, is embedded in the SketchUp drawing, and I'll show you how we did that here in a minute. He built this himself. This is locust posts, which are buried in the ground and poured with concrete around them. It was a llama storage barn, I guess the best way to put it. He has a herd of some 6 to 8 llamas that he has on site. This is about 85 acres in the hills outside of Asheville, North Carolina. They love nature, and so he built this thing himself, and so he's, pounding his chest saying, "I built that myself." I was like, okay, that's great. So we discussed the project, and what he wants is basically something like this. He didn't tell me exactly what he wanted, but the part to the left here and that tan roof that's sticking out of the top is the existing building. This brownish portion is added roof. The piece all the way here on the right, it's basically a story and a half. There's no second floor in there. It's just a tall room. It is a sunroom, I call it. He calls it the window room. It is in a somewhat of a valley that's small. It leads up to the main house that's up here in the background, which is not shown. But one of the things we're going to do in this process is to discover the topography using the geographic information system to come up with a topography, because there is none for this particular property. And we needed to figure out what was going to happen because there's drainage coming from the north. Going back to the photos, this is the west side that you're looking at here. It's uphill toward us. It's downhill on the other side, and then uphill. It is in a valley. We'll see that in the topography. The south side is downhill. Approaching this property, it's uphill drive until you get to the main house and it stops. But you do go past this. You can see it's pretty crude. Looking south, these are from inside. There's a storage loft in here for hay, which is now gone. He was wanting to keep it for some unknown reason. And I talked him out of that, so he cleaned it out. It looks more like you see over toward the east side now. So you have open rafters, and for some reason he dug the dirt out in here, thinking that's where he wanted to put the floor, but I've convinced him that that doesn't work too well because all the water is coming down from the north side. Driveway is over here. We can look into this a little closer. So as you're working on the drawing, you can zoom into this. It's already in SketchUp. If we zoom out, you'll see that it's nothing more than a face in the model. It can be anywhere, really, as long as you keep the background out of it. You can see it's floating around in space, basically. There's some others up here. So this is a way I keep track of my drawings that are part of the process. To do this, all I did was create this face and then import the images onto it. So you go File, Import, and you find your image, and then you go Import. And what'll happen is that image, and I'm not going to actually put it on here. This says, it says it's got the international no symbol because these are groups. It's one big group actually. And it won't take that. So you'd have to explode, or not explode, but enter inside the group editing mode in order to put this on there. You just put it on and hold the mouse button down. That's not the way it's going to work, but you get the idea, I hope. So conceptually, what's going on is it's kind of like a sign. And I make a scene out of it. So at any time I want to refer to these pictures, just click a scene for photos here in this case. And then I did another one called Photo Zoom, which really you could do with the mouse as well. And you can pan this, things. You could work out a scale, I suppose, with these and even measure stuff. I haven't done that here, but because we did some field measuring. But if you wanted to, you could, I suppose you could scale this stuff properly in the drawing. So you could measure things. Then we went out to the site, and I'm just going to go over the basic process. This will go on for several videos, so don't worry. This one won't take too long. I just wanted to give you a pretty good size intro to the project. So keeping in mind, these are projects that are real, and we're actually doing them, and doing them in SketchUp, so you can see what happens. Traditionally, you'd go out and do field measurements, and we did that. A little hard because it's on the side of a hill and there's no floor. There are posts. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 posts. They're about 9 inches in diameter. So this is where we started, traditional field measure. From that, we created a footprint. And what we did here was decided the roof overhangs quite a bit past these posts. And what I decided, because this thing is not square, we measured the diagonals, and it's a 2-foot difference in the diagonals, 35, or a 1-foot difference, no, 2, 35.3 to 33.3 on one angle, and the other angle, you'll have a rectangle 90-degree corners. In other words, you can make sure it is a true rectangle. It's what people do all the time when they're building foundations or squaring up to the first floor of a building when they're building on top of the foundation. You can also use what's called a 3-4-5 triangle, which would be 3 feet, say, on the left edge here, and 4 feet out. And then it would be 5, would be the diagonal or the hypotenuse of that triangle. If it's not 5, it's not square. So you can shift things around until you get that 3-4-5 triangle. It's just a little piece of information that works really well. You can use it for virtually any kind of layouts that you might have to do. So we did the footprint, and you can see in here the drawing shows 10 posts and the dash lines, which are nice that you can do them in SketchUp these days. This drawing, again, is just 2D. It's a picture of the SketchUp model, and use a Windows clipping tool to pull these drawings out. Anyway, we went 2 feet out past the center line of the posts. This is the addition up here. This hill runs up as you go north. North is to the left. It runs up, so we know we're going to need some retaining walls, and to the bottom here is a driveway, which is only about 10 feet wide, and it drops off pretty significantly from that driveway down to the level of this building. You can kind of get a feel for it here. You can see you're standing outside the north side, and you can tell you're standing quite a ways above the building. If you're standing on the ground here, this fascia is in your face. Anyway, footprint, that's where we started. We just came up with a concept. The rectangle that you see with the dashed lines is the existing building, if you want to call it that, the existing pole barn. We did foundation drawing just to get started on this and to estimate the size of the building at 22 feet by 32 feet, and then the addition at 14 feet by 18 feet. So that's the sunroom. Here's the main building, which we're going to turn into a living unit. Now going to GIS, this is what we can pick up from the GIS website, which is the topography of the site. We'll get into that here as we go along. That white rectangle is the existing building that's on that GIS data. We'll go through and trace that GIS topography, and that's what you're seeing here. It doesn't take too long. I want to show you how to work that. I have other videos. One's called From PDF to 3D Topography on my channel that you can look at as well, but this is essentially the same process. So if you look at the GIS site, the green lines here are the property lines. This goes on for acres and acres. You can get as much information as you want. Here's the valley that we're talking about, and it's pretty steep on either side of that. This white light thing is the driveway. And I've already mentioned that that's the building. This is the drive, and then there's a creek, which the driveway and the creek are done using SketchUp sandbox tools. And I'll show you that in a second here. So as we go along, we'll take the topography you just saw and we'll elevate it. These are 5-foot increments. And as you pull them up or down, we'll move this up, we'll pull it up to the first elevation and then do it again, add 60 inches. So we'll create stair steps like this all the way up. Moving on, we'll create ribbons out of those stair steps. So the same thing that you see here is what you see here. All I've done is elevate these and kept just the vertical surfaces of those steps. So you can see here the GIS topo traced topography that we put in ourselves. And I didn't draw it on top of that plane. I created another plane that we'll show you here as we go along. But this is a stacked situation. So when you look at it from the top, put it in parallel projection, they match. So it looks like a single drawing, but they're stacked vertically, as you can see here. So it's a neat trick. You can make 2D drawings real easily that are in reality 3D, as long as you get them lined up. And then finally, this is with the sandbox tools, creating what's called from contour. So it takes these ribbons and adds contour, as you can see here, which is pretty realistic. It's way more realistic than, it's essentially the same as getting a survey, because this is all satellite imaging. So it's pretty accurate. I've tested it several times and not found any real problems. This flat part up here is where I just stopped it with the topography. I figured I don't need any more than that, so it looks a little funky, but I thought sort of liked it. To me, I was looking at it one time, saying that could be a cool looking building. So we go from this to a site plan, which is what I just showed you. Now here, what we have is yet another level of stuff. And you can kind of see it pretty well here. You can see how the hidden geometry of this is all what's underneath the topography here. If you turn hidden geometry off under the view menu, you get that nice kind of clean topography that you can mess around with it pretty easily. You can't do anything with it unless hidden geometry is on. Then you have individual faces that are inside of this grid. So you can play with that, but you couldn't do this without the hidden geometry being on. And that will be part of what we're going to do, is show you how to manipulate this grid. It's not really a grid, it's a mesh that you can manipulate. You can't manipulate it unless you have hidden geometry turned on. And all I'm doing here is trying to give you a little, quickie run through. These are all the levels that we created. There's a GIS level. The level up above here is uh, what is that one? Oh, that's the road, that's the driveway and the creek. So that's that here, that's on that level. The next level up is the traced topography and then the ribbons and then the actual contour 3D mesh. So I do this for pretty much any project that's got some kind of three-dimensional quality to it. This shows you the view up through the valley. The trees in the background are part of a watermark, and these lighter ones are trees that I've desaturated so that they don't take over the drawing. Building is the important part. So zooming in, this is kind of back to the beginning. All of this was presented to the client as part of the presentation of the original design. They loved it, by the way. They called me up and said, well, there are some things we want to talk about, but we love it. So this is kind of a combination of the topography and the footprint. What happened in the end with the retaining walls, some decks out beyond, and the creek. The creek, as you notice, runs right next to the building, and we're having to deal with that. It's not a huge creek. It's more like as they call them around here, a crick. Pretty nice sound when it runs. It's like a little waterfall. Floor plan, which is generated from the 3D model. This plan was actually the first thing they saw. Just quick to talk about how this thing was going to lay out. This piece here is your original building. This piece is the site. the sunroom. Deck out here, another deck, and there's a pond that's actually out beyond here that he's currently enlarging or has enlarged. It's creek fed or hillside fed. This hill goes up quite a ways. So the water's coming down through this little natural waterway into the creek, into the pond, and it's going to inhabit frogs because they like frogs. Over in this area, he's built an elevated parking space, and we'll show you that. Stairs to come down from that, 4-foot wide deck to enter, and then this deck for viewing. The entry door is here. Living space, kitchen, bathroom, laundry, walk-in closet, then a master suite bedroom, which will serve partially as a bedroom and partially as a study. They're downsizing severely and sincerely. They want to age in place, as they call it, which I think is a brilliant thing to do. They will have someone working on the property. They will sell the old house, which is about 4,500 square feet, and that they don't need anymore. Kids are grown and gone. Here is agricultural property, which basically says you can build whatever you want, wherever you want, as long as it's not on someone else's property. You still need a permit, but the permit basically is just to make sure you are doing something legit. He's smart enough to hire me as the architect to keep them out of trouble. 3D view again now without all the trees. You can see the topography is still there. Out behind it, the gray here is the drive. And this is pretty real. Driveway is actually tilted toward the right. This down here, this green, and I'm using colors to help them see what's going on, help me see what's going on as well. This is all fill and drainage. This is a low swale, I guess if you want to call it that. Here's the drive, and this is the new fill coming off the drive and down into the house area. This is kind of there already, but it's going to be manipulated more. The parking area is up here. They've already built that. And this, believe it or not, actually looks like that. They build a lot of things in here in North Carolina that have pretty much a 45-degree angle slope to them. They get planted heavily with erosion control planting. What else can I say? The stair here is a bit of an estimate at this point, but they have to come from the parking area down to the porch. and they wanted the door on this side, so here's the front door. This is where your bathroom, kitchen facilities are. There's a study back here. And I gave them several 3Ds. This is kind of a walk around. That's the south side. This tree exists that you see here. It's a sycamore tree, and they wanted to build around it. So tried to illustrate it as best I can. I don't know the exact shape of it, but we found a tree image that I brought in and kind of scaled it up to try to make it look right. East side that looks out toward the pond. This is the sunroom. The pitch on this building, like I said, is not equal. So I just picked a 612 and went with it. Figured, well, I'm probably not going to manage to make it match either of them. So I picked something that wasn't either. Okay, just going around the building. Here's our parking area up above here. And these are the retaining walls that you saw in the site plan, floor plan. The stone is an image that has been imported. The stone is an image that's been imported as a tileable texture that can be gotten from several websites out there. This one, I can't recall it. To tell you the truth right now, I'll find it for you before we're done with this. Another look at the retaining wall. They have lots of natural stone on site, 85 acres and lots of trees and lots of stone. So he's going to hire a local artisan to build a lot of stone retaining walls in this area. Believe it or not, they're stronger than almost everything else I've seen. They don't seem to fall down. They're hundreds of years old and they're still in place. They're all mortared together. And there are some here that are the biggest rocks you've ever seen that are just piled on top of each other. Seems to work. Do have a limit of 4 feet per wall. And this one back here, it's probably going to have another retaining wall step in it. This is a view, pretty much what it looks like when you're coming up the drive, you're coming near the building. There is no floor in this building right now. This is the new foundation that you're seeing at the bottom. And one of the issues we had, and still have, I guess, is establishing that floor level. It's going to be slab on grade, concrete foundation with slab on grade. This is a drawing we did calculate the amount of boards he needs when he's cutting the logs. This is not the complete thing. I've got another one that is the whole process. This is just a 2D image of the final project in terms of a cut list is the word I was looking for before. It's a program called Open Cut List, and we'll be showing you that here down the road. But the colors are a little bit unusual, but they're made to group parts that are the same together. In other words, these rafters in this porch are all grouped together so that they show up in the takeoff as one section of cost report. The cost for him is zero except for his labor. Section through the building. This is the existing llama barn. So you can see that the slopes are different. Beyond is the new sunroom. Section just through the sunroom. Elevation of the west side, which is the drive. You can see the windows are high and small facing the driveway. They didn't want to create too much a situation where they lose privacy to the new neighbors they are going to have upstairs, up the hill from them. South elevation, this is the view from down the hill. So these drawings are flat 2D drawings. They'll be moved over to layout to get a construction drawing set working. East elevation, same thing. So I'm going around the building. This is actually a section and an elevation. I had to do a section. You see the ground comes up above the building. So without doing a section, it would all be blocked by all of this stuff in the background here. That's the parking and the retaining wall. This is the staircase behind it. So if you watch, you'll see that stuff slowly disappear or quickly disappear. So it has freed up the ability to see the building. This right here is the retaining wall in section. This is a bigger section of the retaining wall and building. You can kind of get the feel for the whole thing here. This is a deck that was added. This, I didn't draw the ground in here, but it's up in here and drops actually 5 feet from one end of the building to the other. Over 33 feet, it drops 5 feet. So this is all going to be filled in with gravel or compacted soil or something, and this is our slab. This is the roof plan and kind of semi-site plan. I'll be getting into how to do that. These are all scenes across the top of it, if you notice. That's all I'm doing is clicking on them. This is a close-up view of the porch framing. So this whole building was built out in terms of the framing. So I was hired to basically create a cut list of all the materials, including the concrete, beams, 2x, decking, windows, cabinetry, etc. It was all done with this cut list program. That's why there's kind of goofy colors in here. They are representative of things that go together. This is the trellis that's over the porch. Most of these are drawings that I'm going to give them. He's going to build it himself, so he has a good picture of it. This is the sunroom roof framing. That's a beam that we've got in there that's going to hold up. These are 25-foot rafters. Interior of the sunroom. This is the stuff that I gave them when we first got this, not first got this going, but got it going after into the design development phase so they could see what was actually happening. And they were just enthused to death. After I got them the first design, they were made one markup and then off we went. He bought windows. These are used pillow windows that were removed from some building somewhere around here, and he purchased them for next to nothing. This one he found at a rehab store. You know, this window I think he paid $250 for. These around here, they were like $150 a piece, something like that. Materials to use in his building. They're solar people, they're electric car people, we love the woods people. The siding is going to be hemlock, which is actually what Wright used on some of his buildings. It doesn't look that great, but it lasts forever. A couple other views. This is the walkway that comes down through. So what I'm showing you is what I showed them. There's the stair in the background. Now there's a person in here, and this is another thing that I'll show you, but what this is a SketchUp person made translucent so that they're there, you can see them, but they're not overtaking the whole project. You can do that with trees and bushes and many other items. If things are getting too heavy for you in terms of landscaping, you can do the same thing with those, which is why the trees in here, as you can see, are kind of light and fluffy. They're more like clouds. They're done at about a 40% opacity, which you can change pretty easily just in the materials dialog. Stair up to the top. I think that might be it. That's it. So the whole point of this is that that's a summary of the project. The rest of the videos are going to cover actually doing all this stuff and following through. So they're going to be independent. You can look at them independently, or you could look at them as a group, or whatever order you want. If there's something you're looking for to do that I'm not showing, let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can add that in. Really, the idea here is what it takes to do an architectural project in my office. This one I'm doing myself so I can understand just what we have to do. And it's a nice project to use. It's not overly complex, but it does have all the things that I'm trying to show you guys available in it. So on that note, I think we'll close this session. Thanks for coming by. Like and subscribe. Have a great day. Thanks.